Today we're making an outdoor lounge chair out of 2 chunks of concrete and a board that slides right in. This project is sponsored by Cabot and it's going to feature some of their stains. I drew the shape of the base on a piece of MDF so that I could cut it out and use it as a template. Concrete is pretty heavy, so I need a little bit of structure for the side panels of the molds. And I'm just using some scrap plywood screwed together with pocket holes. This is an easy way to make strong but lightweight scaffolding that I can easily screw down to a piece of melamine. I chose plywood over 2x4s because 2x lumber can be a little twisty, whereas furniture grade plywood stays nice and flat. For the walls of the mold, I'm going to use some leftover vinyl flooring. It's cheap, strong, lightweight, and waterproof, and I'm just going to countersink some screws to attach it to the scaffolding. I need to make 2 pieces of the concrete that are mirrors of each other, and so I want to make these panels reusable, but that fit right around the template. I need a recess in each of the concrete pieces that lines up with the other one. This will allow me to slide the board right in the middle. I'm using a 2x10 for the backrest, which is 1.5 inches thick. So I just used 2 pieces of plywood to create an indentation in the concrete. I lined up the location, used the template to trace angled lines over the plywood, and then cut 2 pieces that once again mirror each other. This just involves tracing lines over either end of the template and then cutting the plywood at angles. The circular saw doesn't make it all the way through, so I just finished off the cuts with my Japanese pull saw. The MDF is going to come in contact with the wet concrete, so I protected it with some polyacrylic. Now this polyacrylic is tinted green. I had been experimenting mixing stains directly into clear coats. Now I'm going to screw the plywood pieces to either side of the template so that the indentations in the mirrored pieces line up. I want the wood to slide easily into the concrete, and lining up the pieces perfectly will be difficult, so the recess needs to be a little bit bigger than the wood itself. I also don't want the wet concrete to stick to the plywood while it's curing, so I just wrapped a scrap of linoleum right around the piece and screwed it in place. The linoleum is about 1/8 of an inch thick, so that should give me a nice 1/4 inch gap of wiggle room. Now I can take my reusable side panels and screw them down to a piece of melamine. This is why I like an open scaffolding to support the side walls. It just makes it easy to screw down at an angle. The width of the plywood scraps also keeps me nice and stable and at a 90-degree angle to the melamine. I placed the template down and then just screwed the panels right around it. This will give me a repeatable shape while still making it easy to remove the concrete and clean the panels. Once the panels were screwed in place, I then used some duct tape to seal up some of the larger cracks before adding some silicone on the inside. The weight of the concrete is going to push the panels out a little bit, and silicone alone might stretch too far, so the duct tape is kind of insurance. Any concrete mix would work for this project, but I'm making my own white concrete so that the colors on the wood stain will really pop. I just use a 5-to-1 mixture of rinsed sand to white Portland cement. I mix in water until it's the consistency of lumpy oatmeal and then start scooping it into the mold. I made sure to push the concrete down and vibrate it so that it settles nicely against the melamine. I kept mixing and pouring until I had 8 inches of depth. My biggest concern was that the template would get stuck in the concrete, so I applied a liberal coat of vegetable oil before inserting the template. Now I don't want the concrete to cure all the way before I remove it, and for this first one I left it in a little too long, so I did get some cracking, but ideally I should only wait probably about 2 to 4 hours before removing it. That being said, the cracking isn't that bad and isn't going to affect how secure the backrest is. I removed the side panels and saw a little crumbling around some of the sharp edges, but that really isn't a big deal because I'm going to want to round those over a little bit anyways. And to do that, you can just scrape it with a steel file or just a pry bar. The flooring worked really well as a mold. The concrete didn't stick and the floorboards weren't harmed at all. I repeated the same process using the other side of the template to get a second mirrored piece. For the backrest, I'm using an old 2x10, and I guess cut some notches out of either side on the bottom so that it'll slide right in. And then sanded the piece up to 150 grit. I've been experimenting with 3 different Cabot stains for my outdoor projects lately. Cabot bleaching stain to get a nice weathered effect, and 2 different solid color acrylic stains. Victory Gray, which is a nice neutral with a little bit of green, and Desert Sand, which has warm tones and really looks great in the golden hour. After holding up the different samples to the concrete, I decided to go with the Victory Gray. This is a prototype for some of the outdoor seating at the new hotel I'm building, and I think this is the best combination for the patios of this modern piece of architecture. Check out the link in the description to learn more about Cabot stains. These pieces are pretty heavy and weigh about 180 pounds each, so I use PVC pipe to kind of roll them around. Now the weight is actually a good thing, because it gets windy out in the desert, and I don't want the hotel chairs to be blowing around. I line up the pieces, and I'm really grateful that I used the linoleum, because getting them perfectly aligned is a little challenging. The backrest slides right in, and I think this is a great modern alternative to an Adirondack chair. I also like that the base will pretty much last forever. Concrete is very UV resistant, and these would be hard pieces to break. Wood, however, eventually breaks down in the hot desert sun, but the backrest slides out so nice and easily, it won't be that hard just to quickly sand it down and occasionally restain it. So I think it's going to be really easy to get 10 years of use out of this piece before I have to eventually cut a new backrest. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and thank you for watching, and thanks to Cabot for the sponsorship. Bye!